minutes after 7 o'clock in Trinidad and Tobago. Good of you to be with us in the second hour of Morning Edition on this Friday. Well, of course, Indian Arrival Day comes up on Sunday. The holiday is on Monday. Our next Morning Edition live will be on Tuesday, God willing. And it also means today is the final session and the final lesson in the month of May in our Trinidad Bhojpuri class with Dr. Visham Bimal in commemoration of Indian Arrival Day, which is coming up, as I said, on Sunday. He's with us now, Dr. Visham. Very good morning to you. Thanks once again for joining us, Dr. Visham. And hopefully the sessions that we've been having on Fridays this month would have been useful. And of course, before we get into our classes, if people want to get more information, they want to maybe learn a bit more about Bhojpuri and so on, what do they have to do as far as what is available through Caribbean Hindustani?
Sitaram, Namaste, Assalamu alaikum and morning to your viewers. So Caribbean Hindustani exists in the virtual space, caribbeanhindustani.org. And then there's a Facebook page, Caribbean Hindustani, as well as the number 7782980.
778-2983? 2980. Let me make sure I got that correct. Right. So let's get our classes underway to find out how far behind I'm in my lessons during the course of the last few weeks. Let's start with a video that is going to give us some context for the start of our discussion. Let's roll that video now.
तो कौन तुहार बहियन पे ये राखल का कौन लोग गुदना वाला ना तो गुदना वाला के बारे में हमके तनी बताओ बजावेला ले खुर्ती गुदना गोडाइले नटुआ नामा गोडाइले नटुआ गोडाइले नटुआ जब आवेला ऐसे गावत रहला कब इधर दुलाई ने कब दुलाई ने तो जब ये रचत रहता कौन गाना गावत रहा नटुआ गाए तो पूरा गाना ना जाने ना बोला आए गए Sawase avela natua kamare mauji godana godai gini samalia more mauji godana naradia bolavela natua amar mauji mange godna au bai desa vase avela natua more mauji godana mangavela natua more mauji quality nanadi quality natua mauji wa godna तो नटुआ गोदना वाला ना नटुआ.
So especially for our listeners who wouldn't be seeing the video and would not see the translation, we're talking about tattooing and the practice of tattooing and the significance of it in East Indian culture, especially here in Trinidad and Tobago. Dr. Visham, just give us a summary of what we would have just seen.
I mean, this video emphasizes how important interviews Caribbean Hindustani does, because the Godna tattooing tradition no longer exists. And I remember that, we have folk song traditions, and there was a folk song that went along with doing the tattooing, right? So she actually sang the song. I never heard it before. And it was quite interesting to me to actually record that song, because that song has been lost in our one tradition that has been lost over time from the Indo-Caribbean experience.
Right. So let's move along. Even as we're having our discussion about this practice of tattooing, I think we have a picture that we want to show, the first one, and I'll ask you to explain what we're looking at when we put that picture up. Let's see if we're ready for it to have it put up. There we go. So Dr. Visham, talk us through what we're looking at here.
Right. So the first one is called Sita Ke Rasoi. You would have heard that in the interview, because when I asked her, wow, what are these? She said they are recognitions of marriage, but also she said this one is Sita ke Rasoi. I believe that's the first picture you have there. So Rasoi we did before, which means kitchen. So
Right.
Sita ke Rasoi, the kitchen of Sita. You could go on to the second one now.
Okay, let's go to the second one. There it is, right?
The second one, I believe you'd see a bird to the top.
Yes.
And it has flowers as well. So this one is called Ram Ke Bagaicha, meaning Bagaicha means garden, and Ram is Sri Ram, Lord Ram, that Hindus worship. So this is something that has also been lost, because as a child I would see these things, but I wouldn't know that they actually have names ascribed to them. So based on this interview and other interviews, because the Godna tradition is one tradition that comes from that Indo-Caribbean experience, I have been able to recapture these two names of these designs. And these designs, I try to do some research on it, and it's not prevalent in every single part in India. It actually is only in certain places. So it's quite interesting to even find out where they got the motifs to actually do these designs.
Indeed, and I'm sure there's a whole story and a whole legacy behind it that hopefully at another time, maybe in another forum, you'll be able to elaborate upon. But we have another picture. We have some patterns as well that we're going to show in a while. But we have another picture of a Godna, and here we have 4 images that are placed together. In fact, these are the tattoo patterns. Sorry, these are the tattoo patterns that we have that we're showing now. And if you'd like to give us a narration.
Well, these are the essential different types of designs I would have explained. Another aspect of the tattooing tradition, you always look at your traditions in the past and see how there were inequities between males and females. According to this, women had to actually, there was no option. They had to take it as it was seen as a sign of positive sign, and so so this in essence is also controversial as to inequities between men and women within the Indo-Caribbean experience.
And we know in a lot of civilizations, a lot of indigenous cultures, the practice of tattooing is significant. Many people are very familiar with the Maori practice in New Zealand and elsewhere in French Polynesia, in other parts of the South Pacific, where the practice of tattooing has a real significance to it. And in South America, in many other parts of the world, tattooing is very important as well. How do you place even if it's almost dying out, in our Trinidad and Tobago experience, is there still any relevance, any recognition of what it represents from an historical perspective?
Only in these stories. And we'll look at it today because we're focusing on the tradition of professions, because the tattoo artist was a profession. In the interview, she was saying that, she said, is a cup really and not a bell, as the translation suggested, and a cup that actually makes noise with a weight in it and then going from side to side, like the little toy, some children would have. And actually, she's saying that was the announcements of coming into the village, and then the families would call if they have a newlywed bride. I think she said, "Ow, ego dulahin here. Look, there's a bride here who needs to get tattooed." That's the profession. I have not encountered anybody else who are descendants of that profession. And I was quite amazed when she sang the song, because I was looking for this particular ritual song for some time.
Well, it's good that you were able to conduct that interview and get that song as well. So let's move along with our lessons this morning. We're now going to put up the professions that we want to focus on this morning, and of course the tattoo artist will be one of them, given that we spent some time discussing that as well. So here we have the names of the professions. So take us through it, Doc.
Right. Now, it's quite interesting because one or two words in these the audience and yourself might know, so that you add R to the end to create the profession from the fabric or the material that the person would work into something useful to the human civilization. So sonar is gold, add an R, they get sonar. Loha is iron, add an R, they get lohar. So sonar is a goldsmith, lohar is a blacksmith. Charm is leather, And when you add R, you get chamar, as well as the last one is lakri, and you add lakarhar, means a woodsman. So I think two of the important ones here, two that everybody would recognize would be sonar and chamar, but they don't see it as professions per se, they call it caste. And again, this is a reflection of how professions actually, over time, determine what your social status is.
And I was going there because from the time I saw chamar, that rang a bell from many, many years ago when you would hear the discussions with the older folks and so on, saying that this one is a chamar. And they didn't say it in a very nice way. And does that have to do with the social status associated with being a cobbler, being a chamar in that sense?
Okay, so you have to understand why practices were done, right? Now, remember, of those professions, a chamar is actually working with dead animal tissue. And dead animal tissue predisposes to infection. We're in a pandemic now, so that's kind of more in the front of our minds. And the wife of a chamine is called wife of a chamar is called a chamine. And a chamine would be the midwife in the village. And remember, a midwife have to be sterile in the context of a newborn baby. The immune system cannot fend off all infections. So you have to have that period while it matures where there is sterility. So again, it talks about on COVID-19, we're going back to here, interaction of human beings causing the spread of infection. So you tend to find that certain professions that would predispose to that, well, you tend to interact with them less, and this concept of untouchable comes into the mix. So again, why I always say the purpose outlives the tradition or the ritual. So everything we do would have started with some sort of social reason behind it, health reason, public health reason, but over time it sticks and the context is completely gone, but we still stick to the tradition because you say, well, the old people used to do that.
I hear you on that, because sometimes we say things and we use expressions and we have no idea where they come from or what the context is, and sometimes use it inappropriately as well without fully appreciating all of those different issues that are tied into it, because the string or the thread goes back a long, long way. Let's move along now to our proverb. We still have our song to come as we come to the end, nearing the end of our final session in our Bhojpuri classes over the course of this month. Let's go with the proverb. So take it away, Doc.
All right. You usually would read it out, right?
All right. Let me give it a try.
All
right. Let me make a fool of myself. Jetna badra garajela, otana pani na barasela.
Right. So So jetna badra garajela, utana pani na barasela. So badra is cloud, right? Jitna and utna, it says that as much as this much. So relative, correlative, we call it. So it literally, and pani barisela. You know the song Pani Awela from Mighty Trini. The same expression means rainfall. So it says as much or how loudly the thunder might be rolling. So badra garjela. Badara garaji means thunder to be rolling. Not that much rain falls. So it's kind of similar to the expression in English, the dog's bark is worse than its bite.
Okay, so it's like in other words, if you were to paraphrase it, a whole heap of thunder don't necessarily mean a lot of rain.
You wouldn't translate it to a lot of rain here. It's kind of like the CBT rule or the lessons the counselor or teacher. 90% of the things you worry about don't ever happen.
Good way to contextualize it in that sense. So again, it's very, very informative and interesting when we look at these different perspectives, how things are represented in different cultures, different languages as well, different ways of saying things that we would use common Trini phrases for as well. So let's move along to our song now. And before we actually play it, maybe you might just want to give us an introduction, Dr. Visham, to the song first of all.
Okay, so it goes along the same Godna tradition. So we'll explore some expressions in the song about the tattoo. And I just want to say I was very pleased to have written this song for Sikha Dindyal. It's my own original composition in Trinidad Bhojpuri, and the singers are Sikha Dindyal. Again, it talks about the context It switches it now. It switches it now because the girls want tattoos now. Long time they didn't want to get it. Now they want it. And their parents say, no, you can't have one. So it kind of explores that contrast of what exists now and comparing it to the past.
Right. So let's see if we have it ready now. If we have that song ready, that we could play a bit of it, and then we'll wrap up our discussion for this morning.
सयाना मांगे हमके गोदनवा गोदावे सयाना मांगे हमके गोदनवा गोदावे सयाना मांगे हमके गोदनवा गोदावे गोदनवा गोदावे गोदनवा गोदावे गोदनवा गोदावे गोदनवा गोदावे सयाना मांगे हमके गोदनवा सयाना मांगे हमके गोदनवा गोदावे सासू कहे हमके गोदना रचावे सैया गोदना रचावे सासू कहे हमके गोदना रचावे हमका करे भैया कसैया न भागे हमका करे भैया कसैया न भागे सैया न मांगे हमके गोदनवा गोदावे.
Of course, time constraints don't allow us to play the entire song, but we'll keep something in the background as well as we wrap up our discussion and our sessions with Dr. Visham. I have to ask you, Dr. Visham, especially in this time of the pandemic, where you get any time to do all of these things, to write things and do all these classes and so on?
Well, I mean, with all the stress of the pandemic and being a frontliner as well, you have to find something to get your mind off this. I think that's the most important thing. To, at least take a break from news and the pandemic and these things. And this is what actually does it for me.
And being someone who writes these songs as well, how much importance do you place, in fact, understanding the whole history and the culture behind it, so that when you do your compositions, they reflect both the culture and the history and the modern context to it?
Yeah. I didn't hear your question properly. Just repeat it.
Oh, okay. Sometimes I take too long to ask a question. What I was asking is that when you're doing your compositions, how much research do you have to do as far as understanding the historical context, even if you want to put it in a modern phrase?
No, it's a lot of research, and it's not as actually look at the research as something that might be tedious. Because remember, I started doing these recordings just out of the fun of doing it. And just picking up the language. So over time, after doing these interviews, I would have grabbed a lot of knowledge, as well as traveling a lot to Suriname, the Netherlands, Guyana, and so to pick up similarities as well. Because when you notice a pattern, it's quite easy to describe.
And Dr. Visham, in the last couple of minutes that we have, we really want to thank you for the effort, for the work that you would have put into our various sessions. We've had 4 sessions on a Friday, focusing on Trinidad Bhojpuri via the platform of Caribbean Hindustani, and we really want to thank you very much. Any final words that you'd like to add as we come to the end of our final class for this month of May?
I'd just like to encourage your viewers to come on to Caribbean Hindustani, look at the content we have. This is just a sample. And from Caribbean Hindustani, as the founder, I'd like to just wish everyone a happy Indian Arrival Day.
Indeed, and please stay safe, because you are one of those on the front line as well, with all our medical professionals, our nurses, our attendants, almost everyone on the front line as well. Dr. Visham, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to be with us this morning. As we come towards 7:23 in Trinidad and Tobago, as we've just concluded our final session, we go to a traffic update for you now, and let's see what we're going to show you via the cameras of traffictt.com. That's in the area in downtown close to downtown Port of Spain, just going under the flyover, coming past the Central Market area, and the traffic flowing along nicely. A bit of sunshine this morning as well. We urge everyone, be courteous, be careful, be responsible on the road, and be mindful of pedestrians who might be a little bit irresponsible in crossing the road. We'll be right back.